Most of us have felt self-doubt and unworthiness at some point in our lives. However, if your achievements are the result of your own knowledge, hard effort, and planning, and you still feel inadequate, you are most likely suffering from imposter syndrome. People who suffer from this syndrome frequently feel like frauds, despite the fact that they are knowledgeable, experienced, qualified professionals who deserve any praises and appreciation they receive. Rather than appreciating their accomplishments, they are concerned that they have deceived others into thinking that they are good enough. As a result, they live in constant terror of being discovered or exposed. Imposter syndrome is really rather common, with researchers estimating that up to 70% of people have experienced it at some point in their lives. But that doesn't make it any less destructive to a person's self-esteem and future growth. So if you suspect you have imposter syndrome or something similar, know that there are strategies to combat these feelings in a healthy, constructive way. Today I'm talking about how to deal with imposter syndrome in 7 helpful ways. Let's get into it. Welcome to Success for Breakfast, where I'm serving up brain food made simple. Hit that subscribe button to get daily videos created to give you the tools to level up and love your life. Leave a comment and let me know that you have subscribed, because I'm going to go in and make sure I reply to as many of you as I can when you do. The first way how to beat imposter syndrome is to know the signs. We typically overlook imposter syndrome symptoms that arise in our daily lives. Recognizing these clues, on the other hand, is the first step towards conquering them. If you feel like you got lucky when you actually prepared well and worked hard, you may be suffering from imposter syndrome. Some other signs that you might have imposter syndrome are that you may have a difficult time accepting compliments. Another sign is when you apologize for something you didn't do because you didn't do anything wrong. You hold yourself to extraordinarily and often unreasonably high standards, and the fear of failure paralyzes you. Sometimes you avoid showing confidence because you believe it would be perceived as excessive or annoying, and you're convinced that you are not good enough. Pay attention to your language choices, both when speaking with others and while thinking to yourself, especially when it concerns your life. If your personal achievement or the praise you receive from others makes you uneasy, think about where those thoughts came from and what they mean in your life. The second way in overcoming imposter syndrome is to know you're not alone. When you are dealing with imposter syndrome, it is far too easy to feel like you are alone on an island, and that just isn't the case. When you have imposter syndrome, one of the primary sources of encouragement is learning how many extremely successful people, both male and female, have developed wonderful careers despite dealing with it on a regular basis. Which successful people have spoken out about their imposter syndrome? The following are quotes from the New York Times and Forbes. "I've written 11 books, but every time I think, oh no, they're gonna find out now. I've played a game on everyone and they're going to find out." Maya Angelou, author, poet, and civil rights activist. Actor Don Cheadle said, "All I see is everything I'm doing incorrectly that is a sham and a phony." The beauty of imposter syndrome is that you alternate between great egomania and total sense of "I'm a fraud." Oh no, they've figured me out. I'm a liar. So you just try to enjoy the egomania when it occurs and then slide through the thought of fraud when it happens. Tina Fey, actress, writer, producer, from her book Bossy Pants. As I've said earlier, we all go through it at some point in our lives. You need to know that you aren't the only one. If you've enjoyed this video so far, please show your appreciation by clicking the like button. That tells YouTube that you believe other people should see this video as well. The third way to deal with imposter syndrome is to distinguish between humility and fear. There's taking pride in your hard work and successes, and then there's feeling overwhelmed by them. Being good at something might sometimes cause us to underestimate its worth. Isn't it sort of the goal for your skill to look and feel natural after spending so much time fine-tuning it? It all boils down to a feeling of inadequacy. When you feel undeserving, any kind of response, positive feedback, or reward feels like a ruse, scam, or luck of the draw. It is possible to feel worthy without feeling entitled, and overcoming imposter syndrome is all about finding a solid balance between the two. Defending your turf has nothing to do with humility or worthiness. It is not necessary to feel like a fraud in order to be gracious, open, or modest. The next way to overcome imposter syndrome is to let go of your inner perfectionist. I've made several videos explaining how perfectionism, and there are links to them in the description, can be major obstacles for productivity. It turns out that it can also be a big hurdle to overcoming imposter syndrome. Many people who suffer from imposter syndrome are high achievers. They hold themselves to extremely high standards and are committed to doing their best and being the best. Perfectionism, on the other hand, intensifies your imposter syndrome. And when you feel like a fake, it's usually because you're comparing yourself to an impossibly or unrealistic perfect conclusion. Not only is it impossible for anyone to do everything perfectly, but committing yourself to that level can be extremely unproductive. At some point, you must step back and ask yourself, when is good enough good enough? So what's the bottom line? While striving for perfection is admirable, it is rarely realistic, and in many cases it's unproductive, making you feel even more like a fraud. The fifth way how to overcome imposter syndrome is to be kind to yourself. Remove the burden from yourself by not aiming to be the expert on day one. Imposter syndrome manifests itself frequently as a voice in our heads berating us with negative messages like, "You're not smart enough," or "You're a fraud." Negative self-talk is a negative habit that can have significant impact on our stress and anxiety levels. Being kind to yourself simply entails changing the way you talk to yourself in your thoughts by engaging in positive self-talk. It can not only help you reduce tension and stress, but it can also help you to have the courage to accomplish things that will bring you greater benefits. For most of her career, Maria Claw, president of Harvey Mudd College, suffered from imposteritis. While it was difficult for her to entirely mute the negative ideas, she worked hard to add good concepts to her inner voice. Now most days, she wakes up with a voice on the left side of her head telling her what a terrible failure she is, she wrote. However, the voice on the right side of her head tells her that she has the power to influence the world, and she tries to listen to that one more. Start by trying to catch yourself whenever you have negative thoughts, then turn around and contradict your own point. For example, if you catch yourself saying, "I just got lucky," push yourself by asking, "What steps did I take and how much work did I put in to get here?" Then you can use affirmations to answer your own questions, which are short, targeted, positive remarks about a goal you have. In this situation, you could say, "I worked hard and I always work hard." Repeating affirmations like these have been shown by psychologists to reduce tension and anxiety, maybe because these positive remarks construct a bridge into your subconscious mind. By the way, if you've enjoyed our breakfast brain food together, please consider buying me a coffee to support this channel. You can do so by following the link in the description. The next way you can beat imposter syndrome is to track and measure your successes. One of the most difficult things to grasp when you feel like an imposter is how much of a role you have in your own achievements. You may credit them to chance or the efforts of others, when in fact your own efforts, knowledge, and preparedness had a major influence. Keep track of your victories and write them down to further show yourself that you're doing well. There are numerous ways to track these successes, and the measurements you choose will be entirely dependent on your profession or what you're trying to accomplish. If you're a blogger, you might monitor your post's monthly average page views and compare them to learn more. Keep a file on your computer of wins and positive reinforcement, both at work and in your personal life, in the same way that you keep track of your success metrics. One of the best things I've ever done is to set up a happy folder in my personal Gmail account, where I've saved everything from my college acceptance email to praise from coworkers and managers. I open that Gmail folder and skim through them whenever I need to pick me up. You can build an email folder for these messages as I did, or you can create something similar to a swipe file on your computer or phone to store screenshots of emails, tweets, and things like that. The last and probably most helpful way to overcome imposter syndrome is to say yes to new opportunities. It's tough to say yes to everything, especially if you're overworked or overburdened, but it's all too typical for people with imposter syndrome to pass up career opportunities because they don't believe they'd be competent enough. When faced with a great chance, it's critical to determine between the voice in your head telling you that you can't do it because you're not worthy and the one telling you that you can't do it because you have too much on your plate. The first one is your imposter syndrome expressing itself. But keep in mind that taking on tough new tasks and succeeding at them can open up a lot of opportunities for you. Don't let your inner imposter prevent you from taking advantage of these game-changing chances. They can help you learn, grow, and succeed in life. Remember Richard Branson's famous quote, "If someone offers you an incredible opportunity and you're unsure if you can handle it, say yes, then you can learn how to do it later." While taking on a position or project you're not sure you can succeed in can be scary, remember that you were asked to do it for a purpose, and there's nothing wrong with learning new things and asking questions along the way. Start recognizing and implementing these tips into your everyday life, and you will start to feel that imposter syndrome melt away, and that you are less stressed and more accomplished than you thought you could be. You've got this. Now go get it done. Grab yourself some more brain food to help you level up and love your life, and click on one of the videos on your screen right now.